The criminal trial of Donald Trump in New York City is the Rubicon. The question being, will Donald Trump cross it or not? Now, for those that aren't familiar, the Rubicon is the river where Caesar was not supposed to cross it, and then he did. And Roman Empire and Roman history is so fascinating. But I do think it's fair to point out I'm going to refrain from making too many direct analogies because we actually did a show on the Roman Empire. And what I learned was a lot of the analogies people use are like hundreds of years apart from each other, so it doesn't really make sense. But I do think it's fair to say that we stand at a point in time that is akin to the crossing of the Rubicon. We have the story from Breitbart. Potential juror dismissed after Trump's legal team finds lock him up posts on social media. Yeah. There have been 7 jurors. We have the breakdown of who they are. I do not believe it is possible in New York for Trump to get a fair trial, but that doesn't matter. The trial itself can't be fair because the trial itself is fake. And this is why I say we stand at the precipice. Donald Trump has a decision to make. Will he be like Julius Caesar and cross the Rubicon, or will he just be another blip in the history books of a guy who just was thrown in the gutter? I don't have the answers for you. I'm not going to tell Trump what to do, but I know what I would do. But I'll put it this way. The judge has told Donald Trump he cannot attend the Supreme Court oral arguments on presidential immunity, a case that will have ramifications for generations to come and will potentially shred the fabric of this nation. Donald Trump must attend. He has to be there. The judge has said if he goes, he will be in contempt. And he faces up to 30 days in jail, maybe more, maybe less. I ask you this right now and comment below because this matters. Do you believe Donald Trump will choose to abide by the state court order? Or do you think he will stand up and be present for a historical moment in the Supreme Court? Which do you think he would do? I honestly don't know. Now, Trump has complained about not being able to see his son's graduation. That's personal. But I kind of lead towards Trump won't be at Supreme Court. And he'll say something like, look, I don't need to be there. My lawyers can take care of it. It's an argument that I'm not going to be making. The lawyers will. And so I'll take care of this and they can take care of that. But I don't view it that way. We had a super chat last night from someone who said, user Triton54. He said that if Trump chooses to go to New York instead of the Supreme Court, he won't vote for him. Because to him, it shows that Donald Trump is more concerned about complaining about corruption as opposed to actually fighting it. It's an interesting point. I don't know if I completely agree because one could argue that Trump showing up in New York is fighting the corruption. He is standing face to face with these corrupt individuals and challenging them to their faces. But I think the only real answer, the only real move Trump could make would be to defy New York. That's it. Because I'll tell you what I see. I know most of you are probably familiar with the case against him, but I will give you the quick breakdown because for those that don't know, not everybody watches every segment I do, and not everybody knows all the news. The story goes, Michael Cohen, Trump's lawyer, paid off Stormy Daniels. Stormy Daniels was going to put out some negative story or something to that effect. Michael Cohen paid her $130,000 so that she would not. And then Trump reimbursed Michael Cohen for the expense. The problem? Donald Trump, according to the prosecutor, said it was a legal expense as opposed to just paying someone off, right? A legal expense to Michael Cohen for legal services rendered. Bragg, the DA, says that not only was that a crime, falsifying business records, because payments were made to Michael Cohen in the form of a retainer that were listed as legal expenses, but were actually for Stormy Daniels. That's falsifying a business record. Now, that's a misdemeanor. Slap on the wrist. Misdemeanors are usually less than a year in jail if they can even get to that point. And falsifying business records, for most people, you pay a fine or something. Now, if you falsify a record in furtherance of an additional crime, it becomes a felony. The only problem here, there is no underlying crime. None. Bragg has presented us with none. Therefore, this is a DA manufacturing extrajudicially, or I don't know what the right word is, outside of law, extra legal criminal cases against Trump. There is no statute basis for the criminal charge against Trump. The judge should have thrown this out in 2 seconds. And what is this? There's no underlying crime. I love it. It's like when they say you're being arrested for resisting arrest. It's like, wait, what? You're getting arrested. There's got to be an underlying crime, right? I say, no, there doesn't. It seems kind of absurd to me, but okay, fine. Different point. So Donald Trump is told he will go to jail. He is being criminally charged. And what does he do? He says, this is completely legitimate and I will come and I will entertain this. Now, don't get me wrong. Trump has given statements over and over again saying this is an illegitimate political persecution. There's no underlying crime. This is a fact. The FEC, the Federal Election Commission, and the Department of Justice have said, in relation to these payments, there is no crime. But the DA in New York said, nah, we'll do it anyway. Here's the problem. For one, this seems like a foregone conclusion. What juror in New York is going to want to be the person who stands up and says, I acquitted Donald Trump? Yeah, right. On day one, with around 100, I think it was like 109 potential jurors, they went through 50 and they were all dismissed. They currently have 7 seated. We'll go through who these 7 jurors are. I am of the opinion the Democrats have finally reached the breaking point. They have nothing left but to bring about a false charge with no underlying crime against Trump in a desperate bid to stop him, thus creating a decision dilemma. Donald Trump can say to this country, to his supporters, to the people, the government of any state or federal does not have the authority to manufacture criminal charges outside of statute. And by doing so, they have besmirched the good name of this country, and I will not abide by false demands that do not have any basis in law. He could then go to Mar-a-Lago, Florida, and he could wait. What would New York do? New York could, of course, file a federal claim. Trump is evading the law or something. They'd have to go to Florida. Ron DeSantis would have to cooperate. Ron DeSantis probably would say, I'm not getting involved. If the federal police want to come in here and arrest Trump, I'll let them do it. That's what he probably would do. But it would create that situation where you would then have Florida having to make that move. Now, the problem with that is Trump wouldn't be able to campaign. He goes to North Carolina. He goes to Arizona. Who knows? They might just arrest him and say, you're a fugitive from the law. Perhaps. Trump may be playing this game by going to the trial because it gives him press. He looks like a martyr. The case against him is clearly fraudulent. And now he's saying, look what they're doing to me. This country has gone nuts. I still don't know that it's the right move. Perhaps politically and perhaps for Trump. The way I see it, Donald Trump has a moral obligation on 2 fronts. He must attend the Supreme Court oral arguments on presidential immunity. The president of the United States cannot be criminally prosecuted for the things he did as per his official duties unless he has been impeached and convicted. This would mean that if a president was given advanced notice that there's an individual about to commit an act of terror, if he signed off on, military moves against that person, he could go to jail. The family could come after him. That's not what a commander-in-chief should be doing. Now, of course, if a commander-in-chief goes into Fifth Avenue and shoots somebody, you get criminally charged for that. Doesn't matter if you're a president or otherwise. The left and Democrats have conflated this, arguing that Trump is claiming he could shoot someone on Fifth Avenue. No. If Trump commits a crime outside of his official duties as president, if any president does, yes, criminal charges. Like if a president robbed a bank, we're not going to say it's his official duties. That's insane. Now, the argument here is that Donald Trump, in investigating claims of election fraud and arguing them, was acting in his official duties as president. Unfortunately for the left, this is true. The president, the head of the executive branch, is morally and obligated and duty bound to uphold the law. And if there is a crime, to pursue it. We get into a gray area because it directly affected Donald Trump's chances of winning. And that's where things are difficult. That I can respect. But there can be a broad and narrow ruling on this. The Supreme Court can simply say, as it pertains to official duties, a president is immune. We give no answer to whether or not Trump was acting under his official duties. Trump could then be charged, and the argument to the court would then be a more narrow question of, was Trump in his official duties when he did so? the Supreme Court may rule narrowly. That is to say, we will not issue a statement on presidential immunity as a whole, but Trump was or was not acting in his official duties. And I suppose if they did that, it would have to be much more broad, because then the question is, okay, if he was, then what happens? So we will see. Some argue that the Supreme Court may say Trump was acting officially, or what they'll say is, you are immune for official duties. Bye-bye, have a nice day. And then they'll have to bring up another case to the Supreme Court as to whether or not Trump was actually engaged in his official duties. But here, let me go back to the main point. I believe that Trump has a moral obligation and a duty, both to attend the Supreme Court hearing, because it will affect the fabric of this nation. But even outside of that, he has a moral obligation to defy what New York is doing. Now, of course, I am of the opinion that when you're being arrested or whatever, you cooperate. You do. There's certain circumstances where you don't, but, nuance in all things. That is to say, if we were dealing with World War II and you had guys with guns trying to load up ethnic groups onto trains and buses for the purpose of ethnic cleansing, perhaps that is the point at which you say no and you run and fight for your life. But what I'm talking about is not corrupt mafiosos trying to arrest you. I'm talking about if you speed and you get pulled over, okay, just you cooperate, you were speeding. If you're walking on the street and a cop says, "Sir, don't move," you don't move. And if he says, "Let me see your ID." Now, there's ways you can handle this, and some are more principled. But the reality is you can say, "Okay." And then you don't win a fight with an agitated, angry cop, for whatever reason they may be good or bad, by fighting with them. You very well may see, if a cop says, "Let me see your ID," you can say, "I am under no obligation." You can say, "Am I being detained?" And you say, I won't show you my ID. You can absolutely do all of these things. I'm just saying that when it comes to, say, a crime is being committed by someone, they don't know who it is, they ask to stop you, you can just say nothing and wait. But I tell you this, if the cops are intent on using force against you, fighting them is bad. So depending on the circumstances, of course. If the cop just so happens to be like a mobster who's robbing a bank, well, his badge is meaningless. And this is the exact same point about Donald Trump and presidential immunity. If a police officer legitimately stops you and says, "We got a call over the radio of a guy who's wearing a black button-up, unbuttoned with a gray shirt," look, I'm wearing gray today, "and a black beanie, and that's you," and you can say they must be a mistake, and say, "Well, we're going to search you anyway because we have probable cause, blah, blah, blah." What are you going to do? Fight the cop? It's not going to happen. That's stupid. Any problem you have, you win in court. That's what this country offers you. Now, what if the cop walks up and says, "Give me your wallet"? See, that's a criminal action. His badge won't protect him. He is protected by the department and by his friends, which makes it difficult. That's true. I believe that based on the fact that this trial is brought against Trump under false pretenses, it's void. The state cannot just say, "We hereby decree a law was broken," a law that doesn't exist. And that's what we have right now. The courts, the police officers, every single police officer that is involved in, the bailiffs, whatever, that they're involved in this proceeding, they're all part of it. There is no statutory crime. None. Doesn't exist. Alvin Bragg fabricated the concept of a crime to arrest Trump. I need to stress this. Alvin Bragg said, "I'm charging Trump for something that you can't charge him for. It doesn't actually exist as a crime." And Trump went, "Okay, I guess." I think Trump has a moral obligation and a duty to say no. Same thing with Georgia. I believe that what Trump should have done is stayed in Florida and issued a public statement saying, "I am aware of the news pertaining to criminal charges in New York. However, the criminal statute in New York requires an underlying crime for the upgrade of falsifying business records to be a felony. The filing by the DA is a fabrication that exists outside of statutory law, and therefore I consider it to be void and nonsensical. In this country, a DA cannot manufacture charges that do not exist within the law. If they want the law to exist, the state legislature must pass that as a law, put it on the books for which the DA can then pursue. But as of right now, as this does not exist, the DA can't simply declare a crime that doesn't exist, do exist, and then try and charge me for it. If it's not on the books, then he is wasting our time. But you see what Trump did by showing up in New York? He's legitimized it. Trump has just signaled to all of his followers, to all of his fans, and to this country, if a DA fabricates a statute to arrest you under, you will oblige. You will obey. If Trump does not, or I think we're already past this point, the Democrats have crossed the Rubicon for sure. The question is, will Trump? But Trump's already in this position where he's showing up every day. He gets Wednesdays off. That's what they say. No Wednesdays. So what happens next is Donald Trump's participation in this fraud. It's exactly what they want. They can do it to a president, they said. The United States president cannot and will not defy a local prosecutor's fabricated criminal statutes. What does that mean for you? And that's why I say Trump has a moral obligation to say no. This is not, many people are saying the presidential immunity question and all that stuff. No, right now it's happening. If the president of the United States, former, can be criminally charged on a statute that they fabricated. No, don't get me wrong. Let me clarify. The felony statute exists, but it requires an underlying crime, which means for Bragg to charge Trump with no underlying crime is to fabricate statute. That doesn't exist. You can't do that. The FEC and DOJ said no crime. If Donald Trump, a former president with Secret Service, must and will bend the knee, get on his knees and beg the courts when they fabricate charges, what does that mean for you? I'm not happy with Trump, but I suppose it's only fair to say that there's political strategy and my zeal and passion are meaningless in the face of victory, right? Sometimes retreat makes sense. Sometimes you have to strategize. So I can fully respect the political strategy here for long-term victory may be Trump plays ball, uses this to his advantage, becomes the martyr, points out everything I'm saying, and then leaves it to, I am a respectful and honorable man who's trying to work within the system despite their corruption. That makes sense. It does. I wish, however, but maybe it's not possible. We had a more, I don't know, what's the right word? Paladinus? Right? I wish we had a leader who was more of a charismatic, holy warrior type who would say, I will not oblige. I will not stand before a fraudulent court. But again, that may not be how you win, so I don't have the answers for you. What I can tell you is that they've picked several of the jurors, and the hour is later than you realize. We talked about this yesterday. Much later than you realized. Let's show this. Here's a story. Over 1,000 African migrants swarmed New York City Hall. They thought they were going to get green cards. Viral photos showing criminal aliens 1,300 in New York City. How about this one? U.S. soldier shoots migrant during border crosser stabbing. That's right. Criminal alien attacked people and got shot. Do I have any more of these? Rich Americans are getting passport portfolios because you can. Because when you're rich, you can go to any other country and you can say, how much money for me to get a passport? That's right. Many countries, it's about $500,000. You put that money, and here's the best part, you put that money in their bank and they will cut you a passport. You can now travel under their banner. And then, of course, the bunkers. Billionaires are building bunkers. While all of this is going down, the wealthy are saying the U.S. will collapse, whether directly or otherwise. Inflation is up. The Fed balance sheet is getting a little bit dicey. We don't know what's going to happen in the economy. We don't know what's going to happen with World War III. But I have to wonder. Think about it this way. The people who have the foresight to become ultra wealthy, and it's not intelligence or anything, perseverance mostly, but they've planned in such a way that they've been able to accrue massive amounts of wealth. They're now buying passports, emergency bunkers. They are preparing for the worst. I see what's going on with Trump. And it looks like they have subjugated the president. And he's gone along with it. The Rubicon is before our eyes right now. If Trump does not cross it, he signals to the American people that any Democrat prosecutor can fabricate statute to arrest you. Welcome to the communist revolution. This is it. The next thing that happens is, look at the obstruction charge. We're already there. The only hope, in my view, that we had was that Donald Trump would say, you have crossed the line and I now dare you. They have manufactured these charges. They're not real. And Donald Trump said, okay. It looks like a game of chicken that's going to kick off something substantially worse. And Trump is the one who flinched. I will stress again, it would be awfully naive and ignorant of me not to assume that they have a legal strategy. There's got to be some kind of legal play. They have a plan for this. I can only hope. But already, Trump's compliance with the fake case suggests that Democrats are going to keep doing it. Republicans won't. New York will file a charge against someone. Now it's going to be anybody. They'll make up the reason why, and they'll demand you go there. Trump's a resident of Florida. He flew over. So this is where we go. Let's say you live in Missouri, and you're a prominent political personality, activist, organizer, or whatever. New York makes up a charge against you and says your fundraising was fraudulent. You were fundraising and collecting donations in New York. It was fraudulent, so you have to come here now and answer these questions. Uh-oh. Sooner or later, someone says no. But when the president himself, former, obliges, I just don't know what you get. The jurors that have been seated, obviously, are already biased. I didn't even get into that. One woman said that she didn't like Trump and they didn't seat her because her schedule was conflicted. Here was 96 jurors. 50 were excused on the first day and 14 more excused. They've seated 7. I don't see how Trump is acquitted. I don't. And then what? They're going to lock him up? We'll see. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.